So 3 different topics, 3 personalities. Everyone has 3 to 5 minutes, it depends, to present their topic. And after the 3 presentations, we can have some questions. So please welcome and make some noise because they are young researchers from INSEP to Mathilde Poignard. She is postdoctoral researcher at the INSEP. Chloé Leprince, sport psychologist and researcher for the French Football Federation. And Valentin Roux, student in sport psychology at the Grenoble-Alpes Université. Under your applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia, and thank you, the INSEP, for the invitation. I'm here with a lot of emotion today because 2 years ago I defended my PhD in the room just behind, so it's like birthday for me, and I'm really happy to present my job. You understood I have worked for 3 years on this project, and I have 3 minutes to summarize it. So I will try maybe 5. I hear maybe 5. I will take the option. So I will start, of course, by the beginning. Okay, that is me. And I would like to present you the initial observation that we made in the sport psychology literature, which focus on stress and coping with intrapersonal approach. That's to say, when you study stress and coping of athletes, many studies, not to say all the studies, focus on the athlete, his stressor and his coping strategies. That's to say the way he faced to stressor. But these studies didn't take into account the social environment where athletes evolve. And in sport, and particularly in team sport, we know that athletes are never isolated and they evolve in social environment. And several scientific arguments lead us to take into account this interpersonal dimension of stress and coping and ask what happened in team sport. What happened when team sport athletes when they meet stressor and when they need to cope together. So to do this, we relied on 2 theories. The first one is the CMRT, which is referent in sport psychology. It describes mechanisms on stress and coping, but in sport psychology, it was only used with intrapersonal approach. And we can also use a second model, the model of communal coping, which is interesting because it described the interpersonal dimensions of coping when several persons have to face to share stressor, how they join their effort and share responsibilities to develop communal coping strategies. But this model was not used in the specific sport context. So we use this theory and this model to try to better understand what happened in team sport, what kind of stressor can impact team sport athletes, and what kind of communal coping it can develop. And we try to answer 3 questions. The first one is what kind of communal coping strategies athletes can develop in competitive situations. We tried also to create a questionnaire able to assess these communal coping strategies. And at the end, we explored the antecedents which can favor or not the use of specific communal coping strategies. So maybe the 3 minutes are finished, but I will take 2 more to give you my results, of course, to present you. So for the first study, we made semi-structured interview with athletes from different disciplines. And we asked them, when you are in competitive situation, what kind of stressor can impact your functioning, but also the functioning of your teammates and maybe your whole team, and how do you collectively react when you have to face to this event. And we found different communal coping strategies that are summarized here, and we tried to regroup them depending on their function. So when in competitive situations, when team sport athletes meet shared stressor, shared event, they can join their effort to resolve the problem, solve the problem, regulate the relationship, regulate the emotions, and in the last case, if the 3 first dimensions have failed, sometimes they use collective disengagement. We created a questionnaire which assesses these different communal coping strategies and dimensions, and at the end of this big adventure of PhD, we try to understand the mechanism of communal coping, and I have no many time to develop my theoretical rationale, but we assume that some antecedent, some individual characteristics, such as emotional intelligence, and some collective characteristics, such as cohesion, can influence the use of these specific communal coping strategies. And we also assume that cognitive appraisal, which are described in the CMRT, the first theory I presented before, can mediate this relationship. During this study, I traveled a lot because I went in different football training centers, and more than 400 athletes answer questionnaire assessing these different dimensions. And I have no many time to develop the structural equation modeling we made, but in a general way, I can present you the link between this antecedent and the communal coping strategy. So we observed positive links between this antecedent and the three first dimensions of communal coping: focus on problem, relationship, and emotion, and negative links with the last one dimensions. And we also see that cognitive appraisal, such as team efficacy, that's to say team efficacy, the belief of being able to face to the task, was a mediator between these relationships. So it was the first step in the study of communal coping in sport, and we know that there are many possible improvements, but beyond this improvement, we have many perspectives. And for me, it will be very important in the future work to better understand the consequences of communal coping on team performance, because in sport context, it's obviously an important factor. And also, if we know better the consequences of communal coping strategy, we will be able to create training programs to develop specific communal strategies or to improve some antecedents that are linked to these communal coping strategies. Thank you. Sorry for the timing.
Thank you so much. If you want to follow, it's okay.
Hello, everybody. In this presentation, we will talk about recovery behavior changes in swimmers. These are preliminary results coming from a study from the D-Day project. Maybe you have already promoted some recommended behaviors, such as nutrition, sleep hygiene, or recovery strategies. However, sometimes athletes do not always follow the guidelines, even if they know that these recommendations are beneficial. And for example, on the right, you can see that the swimmers' practices in terms of recovery are different than the recommendations. And that's why we need to understand the reasons that push athletes to adopt or not adopt these recommendations. In the D-Day project, we are currently working to design the best interventions to promote the best recovery strategies during the 3 tapering weeks before the Olympic Games. And in terms of recovery strategies, we already know many reasons when we look at the literature or in our first interview with athletes. Here are some examples. And in these examples, we can identify some determinants which can predict these recovery behaviors. For example, we have intentions, attitudes, perceived norms, or perceived behavior control. All these determinants can be measured through a questionnaire based on social cognitive theories, and we are currently using these in one of our studies before and after recovery education sessions delivered by the staff in the swimming clubs. For example, on the left, you can see that the recovery education session did increase the autonomy of the swimmers, and on the right, you can see that the recovery education did not modify the attitude of the swimmers. All these results are important, and allow us to support the staff in the development of the specific recovery interventions, for example, based on the intervention mapping. Specifically to the D-Day project, these results are important to identify the swimmers' determinants which are associated with the recommended specific behaviors to the swimmers. And finally, we can observe that all these results and the responses to the intervention are highly individuals, and we need to develop individualized interventions to promote the individualized efficient recovery protocols. Thank you for your attention.
So good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the INSEP for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here today and have the opportunity to share my research. To introduce myself, my name is Valentin Roux. I'm in my last year of PhD at the University of Grenoble-Alpes in France. I'm also a mental coach, handball coach, and member of the French Society of Sports Psychology. And my research focuses on the understanding of the coach-athlete relationship. And more precisely, the aim of my PhD is to explore what is the quality of the coach-athlete relationship and its potential temporal evolution over time, what can be the consequences on athlete health, and to investigate the potential role of coach behaviors in this relationship. So this project has been conducted in partnership between my laboratory and the Ligue Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes of handball. Most of studies have been performed with young adolescent handball players involved in intensive training centers. And to explore these issues, we have examined the coach-athlete relationship through the 3CS model of Jowett, which considers that the quality of this relationship depends on 3 dimensions. The first dimension of closeness refers to the emotional aspect of the relationship and corresponds to the mutual feelings of respect and confidence between coach and athlete. The second dimension of commitment corresponds to the cognitive aspect of the relationship and represents the intentions of both coach and athlete to work and stay attached together to achieve long-term goals. And finally, the complementarity can be considered as the behavioral dimension of this relationship and refers to the sharing roles and the actions of cooperation between coach and athlete to achieve common goals. So based on this model, we have explored the potential associations with athlete health, and our results indicated that the quality of the coach-athlete relationship was negatively associated with athlete stress levels and injury occurrence, and that some coach behaviors like autonomy support or investment or social support may be positively related to the quality of this relationship. So based on these elements, the coach-athlete relationship can be considered as a key element of sports performance, and that's why we have developed a coach educational program to improve the quality of this relationship and ultimately sports performance, and we are currently working on the scientific validation of this program. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. On timing, you are perfect. I was sure. Is there any questions? I have one question for you, Valentin, because I saw you are a coach and also handball coach and also a mental coach. Is it easy to change, to have too many hats? It's like a laboratory in your handball coach?
Le jaune, il marche? Ah oui, il marche. Je peux répondre en français, peut-être, ce sera plus pratique. Oui, effectivement, je suis entraîneur de handball à côté. C'est relativement intéressant parce que du coup, j'ai l'occasion d'utiliser, entre guillemets, la théorie directement sur le terrain. Et c'est vrai que je me surprends parfois, moi, en tant qu'entraîneur, à me retrouver dans des situations où je prends un petit peu de recul, je me dis ah ouais, en fait ça correspond vraiment à la dimension d'engagement que je suis en train d'écrire sur ma thèse. Donc c'est assez agréable d'essayer de mettre en place des outils qu'on développe au laboratoire, notamment sur la fixation d'objectifs, le processus de fixation d'objectifs pour améliorer la dimension d'engagement. Donc c'est assez riche de pouvoir mettre en place ça directement sur le terrain.
Merci. J'avais une question aussi pour vous, Chloé, parce que vous travaillez aussi beaucoup sur le travail par équipe, sur les sports co. Est-ce que ces méthodes sont aussi capables d'être utilisées dans les sports individuels?
I answer in French also. Ok. En fait, je viens d'un sport individuel comme le vôtre où on travaille aussi par équipe. Moi, j'étais gymnaste et en escrime, je pense que c'est pareil. Disons que quand on est dans une discipline où on est que vraiment sur l'individu, ça va moins s'appliquer, mais il y a des sports individuels dans lesquels la coopération en équipe est indispensable, même si c'est un petit peu différent. Mais en tout cas, il y a des épreuves par équipe dans votre discipline pour lesquelles les programmes d'accompagnement qu'on monte pourraient être utilisés.
Merci. Et Mathilde, I was speaking in French, but I have to speak in English. You choose swimming, which I know it's a very difficult sport, so hard. You have to see the floor and the water every day, so it's really hard. Why swimming? Because of this mental hardness, or?
Je vais répondre également en français. Je n'ai pas choisi la natation, c'est d'ailleurs pas je n'ai jamais fait de natation. C'est un projet en fait qui est financé avec tous les appels à projets avant les Jeux de Paris 2024, et ça implique la Fédération française de natation, et c'est pas forcément spécifique du coup à toutes ces problématiques. C'est vraiment je ne sais pas comment expliquer, mais ça n'a pas forcément de rapport avec la difficulté ou quoi qu'est-ce. Voilà.
Merci. Merci à vous. Is there any questions? Yeah?
Je peux poser la question en français peut-être. Merci pour vraiment les présentations de vos 3 études. C'est vraiment un plaisir de voir des jeunes futurs experts s'exprimer en anglais. En France, en tout cas, je voulais juste poser la question à monsieur. Ton prénom, notamment sur la forme de résultats et de programme d'accompagnement du coach vis-à-vis de son athlète. On sait qu'on a une vieille tradition en France avec des coachs qui veulent avoir une emprise sur leur équipe. Donc c'est pas comme dans les autres pays. Donc sous quelle forme ça va se traduire et ça va être accessible notamment aux coachs demain?
Ok, bon, merci pour votre question. Alors là, pour l'instant, le processus de validation, il est en cours. Hein. Pour l'instant, j'ai mis en place ce protocole là auprès de jeunes entraîneurs plutôt, pas très expérimentés encore, mais ça prenait la forme de sessions, vraiment de travail par groupe. Donc je les répartissais les entraîneurs de sport collectif, les entraîneurs de sport individuel pour avoir des exemples beaucoup plus précis dans leur spécialité. Et l'idée, c'était vraiment d'abord, dans un premier temps, chaque session correspondait à une des 3 dimensions que j'ai présentées. Et avant d'apporter du contenu, on essayait de partir de problématiques diverses qu'ils peuvent rencontrer dans leur spécialité. Par exemple, sur le travail de la dimension d'engagement, on axe un gros travail sur la fixation d'objectifs pour permettre d'améliorer la motivation, notamment des formes de motivation plus autodéterminées qui permettent de s'investir davantage dans la relation et donc continuer à travailler ensemble. Et sur ce travail de fixation d'objectifs, par exemple, on partait de quels sont les objectifs que vous fixez à vos athlètes. Et donc on est sur quelque chose d'assez très large, et puis donc en fait on part de quelque chose vraiment de très large, et puis on essaye ensuite de voir comment ils fixent ces objectifs. Est-ce que ce sont des objectifs de qualité? Est-ce que c'est précis? Et puis petit à petit, on essaye d'avancer certains principes de fixation d'objectifs en commun, certains principes de fixation d'objectifs difficiles mais suffisamment réalistes pour améliorer cette dimension d'engagement. Donc là, les contenus, ensuite, je leur apporte du contenu et derrière, je recrée un contenu au regard de ce qui a été dit avec eux. Donc c'est un contenu qui est presque assez, même très spécialisé au regard des problématiques qu'ils peuvent rencontrer et donc du groupe que j'ai en tant que tel.
Bonjour, merci pour ces interventions trop courtes. J'en ressors en tout cas, moi, très frustrée. J'ai une question pour Chloé Le Prince. Alors, sur l'étude que vous avez réalisée, parce que vous êtes allé très très vite, quelle population, en fait, est-ce que c'était sur des jeunes centres de formation? Est-ce que c'était sur des professionnels? Ça, c'est la première chose qui m'intéresse. La seconde, est-ce qu'à l'issue de cette étude, vous êtes sur un protocole d'accompagnement d'effectifs au sein de la Fédération française de football? Est-ce que vous travaillez sur quelque chose dans l'accompagnement des effectifs? Et si oui, lesquels?
Sur les centres de formation, effectivement, donc masculins, ils ont entre 15 et 18 ans. Et puis on était sur les pôles fédérales féminins qui ont également entre 15 et 18 ans. Parce que l'échantillon, c'était des filles et des garçons. Mais effectivement, on est sur une population d'adolescents. Et sur la suite à donner au programme, alors on ne l'a pas donné en tant que tel à la Fédération française de football. Les contextes font que ce programme, il n'a pas forcément vu le jour et il n'est pas actuellement à la Fédération porté comme un enjeu d'accompagnement des équipes nationales. Ça le deviendra peut-être, du moins les sélections jeunes. Par contre, on a testé certaines de ces... On a développé certains programmes, et je cite mon collègue Maël Guabo, je ne sais pas s'il est là aujourd'hui, mais sur des programmes qu'on a mis en place ici avec le Centre fédéral de basket, justement sur des entraînements aux compétences émotionnelles et aux compétences interpersonnelles globalement, pour développer et accompagner la performance de l'équipe.
Hello, bonjour. Thank you for the presentations. Just a quick question for Chloe. Did you explore differences in coping strategies between male and female athletes or across different age groups?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
But we know it was the first step of the study of these interpersonal dimensions of coping, and we know we have many things to do about that, and it is an option. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any questions? No? Thank you so much, and good luck for the future.